Hello and welcome back to Take It Again, the podcast where we take real auditions from real voice actors and give them some real feedback. I am your host and director, Brian Boston, once again, and thanks again everyone who had been able to set up submit some auditions. Weirdly, did not get as many for this audition here. I'm wondering if people were a little intimidated by the thought of doing an AI voice. I'm wondering if the artificial intelligence twist kind of maybe put some people off on this one. Completely valid. I know that the use of AI, especially in artistic endeavors, has been real strain on the creative community. So this was kind of my way of kind of fighting back, is like putting a real person into the voice of the AI. So that was kind of my twist on this whole thing. We had some really great performances, so I definitely looking forward to taking a look at those. One of the things that I had going into this project noticed, there was a number of people who were they hesitated on putting an audition in, not because of the AI twist, but because it was just such an kind of an out there voice, a very particular voice type, the robotic voice, and they didn't feel that they were the perfect fit, or they didn't know what kind of voice to use. They didn't really have an inspired vision of what this voice should sound like, and because of that, they ended up not auditioning, messaging me later saying, "Oh, sorry, I didn't put one in." First of all, absolutely valid. If you don't want to audition for something, then don't do it. If you feel honestly that you're not the right voice type for it, then feel free to not audition for it. Whatever you're doing, make sure that you're having fun first and foremost. But I do want to let you know that if you don't think your voice is right for it, that actually doesn't mean that the producer, the director, the creator would agree with that. There are people who I've had auditions where I felt really like, I just don't feel like after the performance, I'm like, I just don't think that sounded all that great. I don't think I matched this character at all. Put that in, and turns out that they loved the way that the character came out, because it was something that they weren't expecting. And honestly, you're always your harshest critic. Your performance is going to sound a lot better than you might think that it does. So bottom line on that one, don't feel afraid to give it your all and just to audition. The audition process should be fun. It should be a nice mental exercise. It's a way to flex your acting muscles, to experience different emotional states, and to play with your voice. It should all be a fun process. And if you don't get the gig, great. That's going to be most of your gigs. Most auditions you're going to send in, you're not going to get the part. And that's not because you might be an amateur or you're new or anything. No, the pros, the absolute professionals, audition far more than they perform. They audition way more projects than they get. Because even in the professional world, right, they're going to have a lot of different professionals going for some of these roles. The exception to this rule is those who don't have to audition. That's going to be someone of, hey, I want this person to play this role. I'm writing this role for this person. Trust me, if people are writing a show with the Joker and they want Mark Hamill's voice as the Joker, as long as they can afford him, I'm sure they can get him. And that's just going to be the way that it is. If you're getting into voice acting and you want to be a voice actor, embrace the rejection, because we're going to get a lot of it no matter how good you are. But take some solace in that. Take some joy in that you're not going to be getting these, so don't worry about it. Let that fact that there's going to be so many out there that even on a perfect audition, even on your best take, you may not get the job, because there are just so many other people performing, and use that as a way to embrace that. We shouldn't have the stress on this. Don't stress about not getting a gig. Don't stress about, if your voice is the right one for this, for a gig or for a character or for a role. Just go for it. Have fun. That's the biggest thing. Have fun with it, because your enjoyment is going to come across, and that playfulness is going to come across, and it's a real good activity to get into. Anyways, let's jump into this week's project. This one we were doing a video game. We were going to be playing as Rudder. Rudder here is going to be our little robot guy. Let's kind of read what the prompt was. Welcome to Take It Again, Episode 5. This audition is simply for practice and receiving feedback, blah, 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 blah. This audition is going to be for a video game. Rudder will be guiding the main character through a rundown wreck of a ship. They were in care of the crew through long space travels, but are now the last surviving member of the ship, and the protagonist must try to find out what happened to the rest of the crew. Something has clearly jostled loose in Rudder systems as the AI has begun to try to understand organic life more deeply. Please attempt 2 reads for this character. The first read should have an overall feeling of a calculating machine. The dialogue itself should be relatively flat, as a robot would be. The performance should be focused around the pacing of the delivery, small nuances in the voice, but overall should not feel emotional. The second read, please give Rudder a more unique twist, either in voice or performance. It's here you can give them more emotion and more vocal flexibility. Think of Ghost from Destiny or Gladys from Portal, who are still robotic but with much more personality. As an optional third take, which unfortunately no one decided to take me up on this. Dang, I was really hoping to see what people would do, but that's okay. As an optional third take, you can add your own plugins or post edits to make one of the 2 previous reads more robotic-like. This is completely optional, as the editors will make their final decisions and do their own edits, but please feel free to have fun with a third take if you would like. Please slate your auditions with your name and whatever you're auditioning for, feedback, or the podcast. So, and once again, we got Little Rudder here. Is going to be the art, of course, by my wonderful friend AvoidCrow. Thank you once again for allowing me to use your art and your characters for my project. So with that in mind, and again, it is totally fine that no one took up on that third take. There were a couple of really strong performances that I would have loved to actually play with. I've not had a chance to put them through my own systems. I actually kind of wanted to put some in and kind of play around with the plugins in post myself. Didn't have a chance to do that yet, but I might do that just for fun, just for later on. One of these episodes, I might actually go through and show you some of the tools that I use when I want to do for my own projects, some of the plugins that I use, either to strengthen the vocal quality of a recording or to actually kind of alter those into different kind of character style voices. So I might use that for a future episode. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. This first one we're going to listen to is from Elisa Storia. She did an amazing job in the last episode, and I believe that she had a really strong performance for this episode as well. Let's go ahead and give her a listen.
Hello, my name is Elisa Storia, and I'm submitting for podcast. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor. Error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for.
Already on this one. Now, the first take I had said should be lacking of a lot of emotion. I wanted to hear a lot of that kind of very robotic monotone. I think you did a fantastic job at that. One thing that I had noticed in this take was the use of speed, the use of the pacing to keep a very, ultimately this was a very kind of a slower performance, slower reads with a lot of breaks. And that worked really well for a robot because guess what? You know, they need to be very, very precise in their wordage. And I spoke to Elise a little bit after the audition, asked her kind of what her inspiration was and what the scene in her head was when she was doing this, and she had some really great insight of what she was thinking, which is that this is a computer that is just repeating the words that it is typing into its own head, basically. So it is just a reading of words, and that's where that lack of emotion comes from. Ultimately, I think this was a great take with that in mind. The one thing that I would probably try to do in this one is to, especially because that third line where it's basically saying resistance is futile, I wanted to hear a little bit more kind of dread in that last line without changing really the voice. And one, I think, good way to do that would have been to keep a little bit more of a kind of steady pace through the first couple of lines, so that when you get to that third line and you start to slow it down and add those breaks, now it all of a sudden gets across that, oh, this is, something's changed, without changing the voice, but the performance is kind of altered, and that could add that real eeriness that I was hoping for. Ultimately, this is a really great take. Let's take a listen to the second take. I think we were here. See how the voice changes.
Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor. Error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for.
All right, because at least first of all, one thing that I wasn't expecting, that I wasn't necessarily pushing in for this, but that I got a couple of performances with, is doing your own robotic glitchiness, the own like robotic textures and AI textures with just the performance. So not without adding any additional plugins or doing any editing, just having the glitches in the voice, in your performance. It was great. It was awesome. I love what you were trying to do. I would probably, in an audition like this, especially because it was saying that, take a third take with plugins, we'll use our editors later on, I would have taken that probably as a cue to just do a standard performance, let the voice do the work, not necessarily the unique qualities, the glitchiness and everything that you were performing on there. That being said, I mean, if it was my audition, I probably wouldn't have done it. But that you did do it was awesome. I loved the way it sounded. Great job on adding a lot more emotion to it. Great job adding a lot more character into it while still feeling ultimately pretty emotionless. He had that like brightness, but it was really, really steady throughout. I would say probably the same thing that I said on your first take, which is I would work with the pacing on that third line just to add that eeriness in. Or in this case, because you were kind of playing with the pitch a little bit, you might have been able to take the pitch down a little bit, just a hair with that last one, again, just to add that eeriness in. Ultimately, Elise, this was a great audition. Absolutely loved the stuff that you did. And once again, following protocol, following the instructions, everything was top tier. Fantastic job. Let's look at our second audition. This one is coming from Mark Rivers. Now, first of all, you'll notice for those who are watching up here, the wavelengths are much more mellowed out in this next take. That's going to be something where I'll right away, just from looking at it, I'll say Mark probably needs to kind of click up the gain just a little bit, get a little bit more comfortable with where you're recording in terms of your gain. But let's go ahead and take a listen.
Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my systems complete its diagnostic scan. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my systems complete a diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor. Error. Please note, I am smiling eternally. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor. Error. Please note, I am smiling eternally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for.
Okay, right away from the beginning on here, as we said, turning up the gain a little bit would be the first thing. I did boost the volume up. The danger, again, of boosting up the volume the way that I did is that is going to boost up everything on the track, and that's going to be everything you do and do not want to hear, like room noise, any echo, anything like that is going to be amplified when you play with the volume. In this case, it wasn't too bad. And also, as always, follow the instructions. Make sure that you're reading through the instructions because we wanted a slate on there. That was missed. But ultimately, I did not specify on this audition. This is the first audition that I did not specify whether I wanted an ABC take or an AABBCC take. So Mark actually did the AABBCC. And here's what I would say. If the person who you're doing the audition for does not specify which of the two styles they want, then do whichever one is going to benefit you the most. If you really want to show a constant variation of your voice, going from take A to take B, take B to take B, then doing AABBCC actually works in your favor. If you want to show a full character like development in 3 lines and then another character in 3 lines, that's going to be a whole, you can do the ABC route. I would say generally AABBCC is better if you really want to show off a difference of voice because it's going to really change back and forth, versus the change of emotion, which I would do, emotion and performance overall, I would do as an ABC because you have more of a chance to show the emotional range for each take that you do. But there was no issue with doing this in the AABBCC style because I never said which one to do. So good job on doing that one. Again, just find whatever makes it more beneficial to you and to your style. I would say for this one, Mark, the biggest things that I would take away is there were a couple of words that were starting to get a little bit muddy. And especially, there are certain characters I'm sure that can have kind of like, be just a thick-tongued kind of character who just, when they start to talk and maybe they'll have a couple of sounds that don't always come together and kind of mumbles a little bit. But even in those cases, you got to make sure that the words are going to come out very, they got to be enunciated enough that they're going to be very clear. Especially in this case when the character is a robot, where I would argue that they're going to have some of the best diction out there because they're a robot. They're, everything that's coming out them is just very, very precise. So I would work on that. And then because especially you did the AABBCC route, I would do a lot more flexibility with the tone of each take. With this one, I heard just 2 takes of the same voice, but one was slightly higher pitched, and that was really the big distinction between the two. I would try to, I probably would have taken this one as an ABC, just so that you can really focus on getting that monotone going for the first take, and then really start to expand yourself and really flex out for the second take. That is probably what I would do in this case. I'd love to hear the kind of emotional range you can put on these kinds of lines, because I think that you were reading it very well. I think that's what those are all going to be my comments for this one. But Mark, thank you so much for submitting, and I think that you've got a lot of potential that you can go for this. This next one's going to be for David. This is going to be his second audition with us. Let's hear how that sounds.
Hello, this is David, and I am auditioning for the podcast. Take 1. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system complete its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to human. Error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for. Take 2. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system complete its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to human. Error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for.
Okay. First thing on this one, great change between the first character and the first take and the second take. I thought that sounded really good, having those two very separate characters. Biggest thing for this one is going to be the actual audio quality. Now, I had spoken a little bit with David, and I know that he actually just got a new microphone. And I think it was something that I went over a little bit in the very first episode, but definitely something that bears repeating. The most important thing that you can do to increase your audio quality is to treat your space and then the microphone. In this case, I know that the first audition, David, that you did was on like a laptop mic, and it was just, and now I think we upgraded to, I think it was a Blue Yeti that we got, which is a great starter mic. If anyone is just getting into voice acting and they want a microphone to practice with, whether they just don't know if they're going to be doing it a lot or whether it's like, I'm on a budget, a Blue Yeti mic, great starter mic. It's something that gives you a lot of experience and you can kind of play around with it. And it's like $200 or $100. I can't remember. I think depending on the model that you get. But bottom line is that by getting better and better microphones, the better microphone you get, the more it's going to start picking up. And in this case, I'm not only hearing the echoes of the room, so it sounds like you might be like in, I can't tell if you're maybe in a kitchen or maybe a living room, somewhere where there's a lot of hard surfaces where sound is reflecting back. It kind of sounds off like a really slight echo to all the words. So that's going to be the echoes there. And there's also, you can hear, TV off in the background, and you can hear, the wind in the air, and the moving air. You hear this consistent hiss. All of that is stuff that gets picked up more and more and more the better kind of microphone you get. The microphone I currently use is a Neumann T103. When I first got this guy, it was so it was such a hot mic that I had to get used to speaking in certain ways so that I wasn't so that it wasn't picking up a lot of my S's and a lot of the room noise. And I had to restructure my whole booth to make sure it was capturing as much of the echo and such as possible. Because, again, you get a really nice microphone, it's going to pick up all the bad stuff all the more while giving you more of your own vocals to work with. So how do you treat your room, especially on a budget, especially if you're starting out? This is what I would do as just a couple of general rules. First of all, you want to be somewhere relatively small. The booth that I'm in is like 4 foot by 6 foot. That's pretty much all it is. It's all you really need for doing voice work. You want somewhere full of soft things that is going to absorb sound waves. In a booth like mine, we got a lot of foam all over the place. In the corners, we have bass traps, which are going to be specific foam shapes that are designed to take some of those larger wavelengths. And even the exposed areas that don't have the foam, and right behind the foam is actually it's solid wood with a soft covering on it. So even when it gets all the way through, it's still a pretty soft surface. A really great space to start with, if you are new, is going to be a closet. If you've got a closet with a bunch of hanging clothes in it, guess what? That's a great space to record in, because the clothes are going to act as all this sound foam. You don't need all the sound foam if you got a bunch of clothes laying around, and those are going to absorb a lot of the sounds. Another thing to help on a real budget way, especially if you can't be in the closet, you have to be outside, whatever it is, to make it as best as possible. Put a large pillow behind your microphone by just like a foot or two. Just put it back there. That way, as you speak, your sound will be picked up by the microphone, and then it goes right into the pillow, which is going to absorb a lot of those sound waves before they have a chance to go echo around the room and create that echo. So there's a couple of things to do that will just treat your room in a very, very cheap way. If you're traveling, especially if you're in a hotel room and you want to do some auditions or you want to do some recording, here's one of the cheapest things you can do, which is take a nice thick duvet off of your bed and put it over you like a big old cloak and kind of hold it up and just speak in there. Because guess what? That's exactly what you're doing. You're creating this small space and you are creating with this nice soft material that's going to absorb a lot of those sound waves, and it's going to keep a lot of the sounds from outside from getting to your microphone because you're completely surrounded. It is not comfortable once you're under a blanket like that. It does get very hot underneath there very quickly. But for doing a couple of short reads, for doing some auditions, it's absolutely a great way to get a good quality recording at a very, very low price. As you get more into voice acting, as you get further on and you want to make some investments, they have PVC style booths that you can do. You can sound treat a closet or small room with kind of foam like I've got here. Or as you go on, you might even invest in a studio booth like I've got. This is a whisper room style booth. They are not cheap. They're quite expensive. But it gives you a booth that is professional quality that you can kind of build into the room you want to use as a studio. And if you move, it actually comes apart and you can move along with it. But yeah, that's what I would focus on for your take is increase the quality of your audio. From your performance standpoint, you actually did very well. I noticed that you caught one of my spelling errors where I forgot to put an S on one of the words. What was the word that it was? Let me look at this real quick because I know I caught it when you were reading. I think you were the only person who did it. Yeah. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. I meant to put an S on there, and I didn't. You caught it, so good job. But at the same time, you also missed that I had this word humor. You caught it as human. I had said this in a previous audition. Not a huge deal. If you misread a word and you just perform along with it, I'm listening to the performance. I'm listening to your voice, your creative choices, and your overall reactions and such in this moment. Messing up a word like that, not a big deal whatsoever, but it's something to keep an eye out for when we're doing this. I'll also try to keep an eye out for spelling my words correctly, so you're not alone in misreads and such. What was the other? I think I had one other thing that I really wanted to point out. So audio quality, work on the room. We got the words, you missed one word but caught my other. There was a couple of little mumbles to a couple of the words. I would also try to be very, very clear with your diction when you're doing those. I swear I had something else, but I think it's gone. Sorry, I think it's gone. All right, let's go on to our final audition. This one's going to be Night Guy. Now, Night Guy, you can tell just from the visuals here, very, very soft performance in the mic. I would definitely work on increasing the gain, but I really liked your performance, so let's go ahead. I'm just going to turn up the volume here. Let's go ahead and give it a listen.
Hi, my name is Night Guy, and I'm auditioning for the podcast. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. I am told this is the appropriate reaction to humor. Error. Please note, I am smiling internally. Your fear is unnecessary. Resistance has already been accounted for.
Once again, we had another take where Night Guy, you did your own vocal effects with the whole growliness, creating those robotic the robotic sounds with that vocal fry. Very impressive, very impressive. I loved listening to it. I would not recommend doing that kind of voice long term because you put enough vocal fry, enough growl, enough whatever into the voice, and you're going to start straining and you're going to start, potentially hurting your voice. So be careful with those. But it was a very cool effect. And I would also generally, like if it was my audition, if I was doing this one, I probably would not do the effects myself in the voice, just because I know that they're going to be adding those effects in post. I would have loved to hear the performance without the vocal fry, just to kind of see what it would sound like as a different performance. But from what you did and for how you did it, fantastic job. Just, turn up that gain, especially when you got a real soft voice, because I can imagine dogging in this kind of voice for a while. You can't do it very loud. So if you're going to be very, very soft through a whole performance because of the voice you're going to use, just crank up the gain. You crank up that gain, all of a sudden you got this nice full sounding performance. I know that even stage performers will utilize the microphone a lot more when they're going to be doing a voice or something that has to be very soft. In fact, I know that there was an interview with the person who does Beetlejuice on Broadway, not Alex Brightman. Alex Brightman's the original Beetlejuice, and he's got a great growly, very great growly voice that he does through the whole show, and it's a great voice that he does. But very few people can do that voice long term, and he does it for hours every night. So one of the people who also does Beetlejuice outside of Alex Brightman has his own voice that he does, but he does a lot of breath, and it speaks very, very quietly. So when he does his voice, the mic guy just cranks it up. So that way it doesn't matter that he's way, way softer than almost anyone else on stage. The microphone is being the tool, is being the instrument that he's utilizing. Do the same thing here. If you've got a voice that's going to be really quiet, just crank up the gain and make sure, because by cranking up the gain, you're giving the person who's taking in the audition, whether it's an editor, whether it's a producer, you're giving them the full audio impact of your performance. Loved the shift of character from take A to take B. You gave it a lot of good qualities. I probably would have done a little bit more on that very last line in both the takes to make it a little bit more eerie. It's a tricky one because you're writing a fine line, because I did not want, and what I expected people to do more, and I'm glad that they didn't, was to overact that third kind of evil line, the whole resistance is futile thing. And I did not get a lot of that, which is great. I got a lot of subtleties. I think some of the subtleties, though, almost came out too subtle. I needed something just a little bit more, whether it's slowing down the performance, whether it was just lowering the pitch ever so slightly, something that kind of gave that third line that little bit more of that eerie feeling. And that's kind of what I was more looking for in there. I was going to, and I decided not to go this route for this episode. I was going to do my own recording and show you kind of how I would structure up an audition myself. I might do that in the future, but I decided not to on this one. I did, however, want to kind of give over this one way of thinking of when you are at the beginning. I said that like sometimes you don't feel like you're the right character voice, or you don't have the right thing for a character, and that kind of led me to thinking about, well, how do you come up with a character voice? And this is just one strategy that I had heard in an interview that someone does, and it was the thing that he said was that there are no bad impressions, only new voices. And I like that because you'll hear characters in TV shows, in cartoons, in video games that are clearly based around another actor or another character voice. There's a lot of characters who sound like the Joker, or they have that Mark Hamill quality to it, or someone who's a very popular one is going to be people who sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can't remember who's the fairy in the Fairly Odd Parents. Big muscle man, and he's got that kind of voice that he does, and it's like it's not a good. If you were to hear this person's voice like outside of context, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm doing a great Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation," you might be like, "Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's not great." But that's just it. It's not that it's a bad impression. You're just doing a new character voice. So if you're doing a character and you don't have a voice for it, try doing just an impression of an actor, of a character, of someone else, and make your bad impression into a whole new character for you to utilize. One that I do very poorly, I think, is oh shoot. Oh, why can't I think of his name? I can never think of it off the top of my head. Christopher Walken. Uh, doing a Christopher Walken impression, because I don't do a very good one. I do it pretty bad, actually. But, if you stop thinking about it as a Christopher Walken and you just think about it as a voice, all of a sudden now you've got something that's very unique and, it's got some good qualities to it. And I was imagining trying to use some of those characters, some of those impressions in this role, in this particular role with Rudder, because here, let's pull him up one more time and let's look at some lines, because just the lines are very, very basic. Now, doing as a robot, as little emotion as possible, that's always kind of a fun exercise in how can I enunciate, how can I make a character without the fluctuation of my pitch and tone. Personally, when I do like kind of robot characters, if I want to have that real monotone, I go between 1 and like 3 pitches, and I'll just go as a 1 pitch. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. Just 1 voice. But then if I take 2, welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. Just jumping between 2. And you can just kind of add some little pitches on there. But when you get to that second take, I'm imagining a robot sounding like Christopher Walken. Welcome aboard the King's Oar 2. Please remain still while my system completes its diagnostic scan. Imagine that, but with a little bit of a robotic fry to it. Imagine that the pitch jumps as he speaks because, the computer's, picking different pitches. These are little effects that you can add in post. And all of a sudden, it's becoming less of like, oh, listen to this, Christopher Walken robot thing. And it starts to become, oh, this I can actually kind of see this as a character. I can kind of see this as a kind of unique twist on what a robot should sound like. Because, I mean, look at Wheatley from Portal 2. Give him a British accent and make him sound wacky and cool. And he's still a robot. He's still AI. Versus Gladys, who has that, thing where her voice kind of jumps pitch all over the place. Versus... oh shoot! What's the AI from 2000 Space Odyssey? I can't do that, Dave. It's just a really emotionless but pitchful read. There's a lot of ways to do these kind of voices. Bottom line on this one is if you've got bad impressions, do them. Make them into voices. Have fun with it. Whatever you're doing when you're doing an audition, make sure you're having fun. Make sure you're enjoying the process, because the best thing that can happen is that you have a blast doing this fun voice and you get cast for it, so you get to do it a lot more. So yeah, do your bad impressions, do your voices. If you feel nervous, don't feel pressured to do an audition, but also don't feel pressured not to. Make them bad. Just put content out there. It's about practice. It's about exposure. It's about, getting, hopefully some feedback. And you're going to find your niche, and you're going to find your people. You're going to find your character who's going to take you far. And that's going to be episode 5. Thanks so much for listening in. I hope you got something out of this. I hope that you were able to pick up some tips and tricks. And the new audition for episode 6 is already out. The next episode is going to be another video game style read. This one is focused on the efforts as opposed to the voice. So take a look into that. It's on Casting Call Club, or you can check it out on my Twitter, which is going to be at BrianBoston10. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for having me.